you make a Graphgan, you often have a lot of working yarns attached to your blanket as you're crocheting. And if you're not careful, they can get really messy. Today, I'm going to show you the method that I use to organize my yarn whilst I'm working and avoid tangles altogether. This is what my setup looks like when I'm working on a Graphgan. I'm going to take it all apart and show you each individual piece and how I use them. First up is the yarn holder, which consists of a frame, a dowel which slots into the sides of the frame, and a few small wooden pegs that slot into the bottom of the frame. Now, I have included a link to this yarn holder down in the description, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend this exact one because, as you can see, it's a bit wobbly. The next piece of equipment I use is bobbins. I wind the yarn onto these and then slide them onto the yarn holder. Being on the yarn holder allows them to spin easily, which allows the yarn to unravel as I'm using it. Now, the important thing here is to slide the bobbins onto the yarn holder in the order that they're being used in your project. So if I bring you up here to the start of the row, this working yarn is attached to the ball of yarn on the end. I'm using a whole ball of yarn here rather than a bobbin for a few reasons. The first one is that the yarn holder only fits about 6 or 7 bobbins, and I need more than that for this project. And the other reason is that the edges of this pattern have big blocks of this dark blue colour, which will use up a lot of yarn, so there's not really any point in winding small amounts of this ball onto bobbins when I know I'm going to use this entire ball for this section. If we move across the row, the next yarn we encounter is this light blue one, which is attached to the first bobbin on the yarn holder. The next yarn after that is attached to the second bobbin, and so on all the way across the row. At the very end, I have another full ball of yarn, just like I do at the start of the row. When working on Graphgans, yarns aren't carried across the row, so once you've got it set up like this, your yarns are never going to tangle because they're never going to cross over. When I get to the end of this row and turn my work, the yarns will twist just like this, but they aren't tangled. Just remember to turn your work in the opposite direction at the end of the next row to untwist it. If you always turn your work in the same direction, it's going to twist more and more each time and it's going to cause problems. But what happens when we need to add a new bobbin? I've crocheted part of this row and got to a point where I need to add some white yarn. I've wound my white yarn onto a new bobbin and done my colour change. Now, because I'm working on a wrong side row and my yarn is currently twisted, I'm not going to put this bobbin onto the yarn holder just yet. I'm going to leave it to the side until I finish the row. In fact, further along this row, I need to add another white bobbin, which I'm also going to leave to the side. Once I reach the end of this row and turn my work, which in turn untwists the yarn, I can add the bobbins to the yarn holder. To do that, I pick up the bobbin and move it over to where the yarn is attached to my work, making sure to untangle it from any other working yarn as I go. Once I've done that, I can see where in the yarn holder this bobbin needs to sit. In this case, it's between the light blue bobbin on the far left and the dark blue bobbin next to it. So I just lift up one end of the dowel, slide the light blue bobbin off, slide the white bobbin on, and then slide the light blue bobbin back into place. But what about my second white bobbin? You may notice that the yarn holder is full and I can't fit any more bobbins onto it. Well, I'm going to start by doing the same thing as before, moving the bobbin over to where the yarn is attached and untangling it as I go. And in this case, we can see that the bobbin needs to go between the blue ball on the end and the first light blue bobbin on the yarn holder. This is where I'm going to use those pegs that I showed you at the beginning. I'm going to pop the bobbin onto a peg and then slot the peg onto the bottom of the yarn holder. Using the pegs isn't ideal as the bobbins don't spin as well when they're on the pegs, but it works well enough in a pinch. So there you have it. There's a basic overview of how I organize my yarn and avoid tangles when I'm working with so many bobbins. The main things to remember are to add the bobbins to the yarn holder in the right order and to make sure you're turning your work in the opposite direction at the end of each row. Let me know if you have any questions or if you use a different method. I would love to hear about it. I'll see you in the next one.